Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I got an update to a story I did not so long ago. A lot of people sent this to me. Thank you very much, from Denver7.com. It's an update on that electronics shop that was charging the storage fees and also suing people in Colorado, even though they lived elsewhere. So Colorado Electronics Repair Shop changes policies after judge throws out lawsuits against customers. Didn't throw them all out, but threw enough out to get his attention. Jacqueline Allen and Joe Vaccarelli wrote this. The Colorado Device Repair Company is changing some of its policies after a recent court decision, or a spate of court decisions, if you count them by the cases. The company filed at least 85 lawsuits in Colorado against businesses and individuals, saying that some of the customers abandoned their devices, resulting in thousands of dollars in storage fees and unpaid diagnostic charges. Last year, the company began filing lawsuits against those customers, many of whom do not live in Colorado. And so here is the issue, okay? You're in another state. Let's say that you're in Maine and you have a broken electronic device and you're thinking, should I throw it away? Can I find someone to fix it? Locally, you can't find anybody, but you go online and you find somebody in Colorado. It's got a website that says they can fix it, okay? So you package it up and you send it to them, and they contact you and say, hey, it's going to cost this much to fix. And you go, don't want to do that. I don't think it's worth it. Question then is, do they ship it back to you? How much do you owe them for a diagnostic fee? And if you refuse to pay them, what happens? And I mentioned in the original story I did that many states will enforce a clause in a contract that says, we agree to have this case settled here or resolved here as long as the parties agreed to it in advance. When I did the video, I said, I'm not sure if that exists in this case, but I've seen many cases, and I gave the example of the car lender for car loans that had the clause in their contract that said, even though you might be in Maine or Texas, you agree that if you have a legal dispute with us or we have one with you, it'll get resolved in Southfield District Court or Oakland County, Michigan. Take your pick depending on the amount of money. But it'll be resolved in Michigan, in Oakland County, quite possibly in Southfield. And many courts will uphold that by saying, well, you agreed to that when you got into it. Now, the diagnostic fee is another thing, which, again, if disclosed up front, might be enforceable. But on the other hand, if not, it might not be. But worse, storage fees, because apparently this guy who runs his business was charging people storage fees for things that he said he could not fix. So you send him something and he goes, I can't fix this, or it's going to cost so much to fix it's not worthwhile. And you say, okay, fine. You don't make arrangements to have it shipped back to you, and it's just sitting in his shop. And apparently he was charging $25 a day for storage, which, as you can imagine, for something small might not be really conscionable. And so those are the biggest issues. One is the venue choice as to where it's going to be tried. Number two is the diagnostic fee. Is that clearly disclosed? And number three, is a $25 a day storage fee fair? And also, was that disclosed? So those are the big issues that popped out at me when I first read the first story. And now it appears that those, of course, were sticking points here because a Jefferson County judge dismissed 47 cases against out-of-state defendants, saying the court did not have jurisdiction in those cases. And there were at least 85 cases, so that is just a little bit more than half that were tossed. Now, following that decision, the company has now said that they've changed some of their policies. So the owner said, we immediately implemented some changes. We have respect for the court system. While we disagree, the comments that were made have led us to make changes. And this is the kind of thing, I know a lot of people think, attorneys cost a lot of money. I'd hate to spend a lot of money on an attorney just to have him give me some advice when I'm not being sued or anything. But an attorney would tell you, depending on what state you're in, that yes, you can put that venue selection clause in there, but it's got to be worded this way. It's got, and you can probably charge storage fees so long as they're reasonable and clearly disclosed. And likewise, that diagnostic fee makes complete sense. Again, disclose it and say how much it's going to be and go on from there. And a real issue that popped up here apparently was somebody would send something in and say, diagnose it and let me know. The guy'd come back and go, here's what it would cost to repair. And somebody goes, okay, I don't think it's worth it. Just throw it away. Throw it away. Well, there is a question about throwing something away that might have information on it, personal data and so on. So let's suppose you sent an iPad. You said, throw it away. Well, is this guy now supposed to throw it away in a way that is environmentally sound and protects your data? Or shouldn't he just send it back to you and let you take care of it? So there are issues like that as well. But those are the kinds of things that you should be thinking about before you box up something you own and send it to another state for a diagnostic and repair. Some customers talked about this and said this was a weight off of them. The website showed that one man here who'd sent in an Xbox for repairs had racked up more than $3,600 in storage and legal fees. Now, it's not broken out which is which, but he spoke to Denver7.com, the TV station, and said, I think you guys shining the light on that really helped. I appreciate it for you guys taking the time. And this is a great example, and I'm going to do the thing I always do, where somebody shines a light. This is a spotlight, shines a light on a problem, and it's often the media, TV stations and radio stations. So an email sent to customers recently states that because of the court decision, company will deduct storage fees, and once a diagnostic fee is paid, the device will be shipped back at the company's expense. So pay the diagnostic fee and we'll send it back to you. You've got to give these guys credit. They just don't see right from wrong, in my opinion, said another customer who said he won't be working with his company again in the future. He shipped the company a pair of binoculars, and that's the famous example, the binoculars, and accrued thousands of dollars in storage fees after the company could not repair them but would not dispose of them. While the storage fees are no longer listed on his account, the legal costs remain. And he said, I think this is the dark side of the internet. I think that you have to be careful about who you contract with. I want to compliment all of you, referring again to the TV station. I think that this restores my confidence in journalism. I think it's an incredibly valuable institution, and this is a perfect illustration of why it's important to communities. Now, meanwhile, the owner of the shop said he will likely waive legal fees, but he is looking into liens if customers don't pay their diagnostic fees. He told Denver 7 he's also dropping defamation lawsuits related to negative online reviews for now and plans to appeal the judge's decision on jurisdiction. So the question on the jurisdiction really comes down to whether it was disclosed and if he had the language I'm talking about that says you agree to litigate here if something goes south, okay? Not geographically south, but figuratively south. And I also didn't mention the defamation lawsuits in my earlier reporting on this because the story I saw didn't mention them. And that's always something that's real sketchy because there's, these different complaint sites out there, Yelp and Google and so on. And people will see a bad review and go, wait, I think that's defamatory. And we've heard of people before who start suing people who review them badly. And then, of course, when word of that gets out, total strangers review them, which makes things worse. Owner of the company says, obviously, we think it sets a dangerous precedent for the state of Colorado that if you're an internet company, or really any company, and you're doing business with customers out of state, you're going to have a hard time enforcing your contract in state courts. And that is the economic argument here. Let's suppose I have a business. Okay, I set up a widget repair business in Michigan. Okay, Steve's Widget Repair. And I'm advertising that I will repair widgets. And I have all the disclosures on my website. You agree to, lawsuits and litigation take place here. You agree to a diagnostic fee, blah, 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 blah. And you send me your widget, and I look at it and go, I can't fix it. I'm very sorry, I diagnosed it, I can't fix it. So all I need is a diagnostic fee, and I'll ship it back to you at your expense. And you go, let me think about it. You don't tell me yes or no, let me think about it. Month goes by, and I say, hey, I still got your widget. And you go, I'm still not. So sooner or later, I'm going to have to do something. Now, if you're in another state, if I've got to come to you and sue you there, it obviously isn't worth pursuing. And you might say, but Steve, that means that you should think more about how you set up your widget repair company. Yes, it does. It means I'm going to have to say Steve's Widget Repair Company of Michigan, and I only work on widgets from Michigan. And I can tell you, as a person with an internet presence, that I get contacted by people around the world who want to hire me. And I have to tell them, no, I only can practice law in the state of Michigan, and I have a very narrow specialty that I handle. And so when someone calls me from Texas or Colorado or Utah or Alaska, I say, I can't help you. I'm only licensed in Michigan. Okay? So you can imagine what would happen to Steve's Widget Repair Shop if I knew that I can't enforce any of these things against people outside the state of Michigan. I would just simply have to say, I can only work in Michigan. And so what would happen then is people would call me up and they go, I'm desperate. I can't find somebody who will work on my widget. I'll pay you. I need my widget repaired. And I have to say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And so there is a ramification to it. And so I have no problem with a company that clearly discloses things and says, here is how it's going to be. Now, the $25 a day storage on a pair of binoculars does seem what we'd call unconscionable, to where the average person might not look at that and go, that's a sticking point. I won't sign that contract. But later on, when they discover that because they didn't get their binoculars shipped back to them fast enough, they're racking up $25 a day for storage. That's some pretty high rent for some shelf space, okay? So business owner says, we're trying to do business nationwide, but it's going to be hard if Colorado makes us do this. So the man who runs this company has also had lawsuits in other courts that ran into trouble. Court records state that last year, a Denver court found his $25 per day storage fee was unreasonable, and the court lowered it. And by the way, a court might say, you're entitled to storage, but it's got to be reasonable. It's got to be conscionable. It's got to be. And so for a widget, which I jokingly often point to the copper cube and say, there's a widget for you. Obviously, that little space on my shelf ain't worth $25 a day. Although, if you want to put something on that shelf right there and pay me $25 a day to put it there, I'd consider it. Binoculars, no. They take up too much space. I'm talking about just the little space the widget is. Don't give me ideas. Anyway, the owner says, I understand that the optics, perhaps, of charging these storage fees to the general public, the overall optics of that may not be great. But we were inundated with hundreds of positive messages at the help desk of people that had been in small business and had empathy for what we were going through and shared their own personal stories about how they felt frustrated when customers exploited their services. And so, again, depending on which side of this equation you're on, but I've spoken to a lot of people who've dropped things off for repair or sent things for repair and had a bad experience. And the question then is, how do you resolve that? And so as a consumer protection attorney, I've been doing this for 34 years, I've heard it all and I've seen it all in this field. There's still news stories that freak me out, but consumer protection issues. And that really is the issue. And so if you're a business and you want to make money, you can't afford to have people shipping you stuff if they don't pay the diagnostic fee and just leave the stuff at your shop. What happens if you do throw it away and they call you back and go, I changed my mind, I want it back now? There's just so many things that can go wrong. So if you are a business and you're wondering how to protect yourself, the real thing to always think about is to make sure that you disclose everything to the consumer up front so when they enter into the transaction and you're in court and a judge goes, you do what now? You charge for what? You say, Your Honor, it's on my homepage. I have them click a box that says, I understand the following things are true. If they don't want to send their stuff to me, don't click that box and don't send it to me. And a judge is then going to look at the other side and go, wait, you clicked that box and you sent it to him? And you saw the language following the box that said, I agree to the following terms and conditions? I mean, that goes a long way. I'm not guaranteeing you're going to win. Depends on the judge. Depends what state you're in, because some states are a little more picky about what's got to be disclosed to a consumer. But these are the problems that I identified in the first story, and they are the problems, of course, that popped up here. So not all the cases were thrown out. In fact, almost 40 of them remained. Now, those might be against local people who are in Colorado, but then they can get to fight over the amount of the storage fees and possibly the diagnostic charge. But either way, it's a fascinating story, and I think it's something we can all learn from, especially in this day and age where people do a lot of business on the internet. So Denver7.com, the TV station, doing wonderful work on behalf of consumers there in Colorado. Jacqueline Allen, Joe Vaccarelli wrote that story. A lot of people sent it to me. Thanks a lot. Colorado Electronics Repair Shop changes policies after judge throws out lawsuits against customers, and they say they also might be appealing. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. You are allowed to be a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time.